Good morning and welcome to my live stream. Here we are to Fight CPS with your host, Bob Pace. And I'm on every day, twice a day, 7 days a week. I come on Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. And it's a 1 hour live stream, and that's Pacific Standard Time. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I come on at 8 o'clock in the morning for 1 hour Pacific Standard Time. Then Monday through Sunday in the evening, I'm on at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's the west coast of California. I'm live streaming from Surf City, USA, about 3 blocks from the ocean. And I want to give a warm welcome to all of you out there that are fighting an entity, what I call CPS, which stands for the Child Protection Systems. Every county, every state, every country will have a child protection system. And we got two Graces here. Okay. I have two show producers this morning. That's interesting. um, uh, am I seeing double or not? I don't know. This morning's been kind of hard because my computer again is acting like an old dinosaur. It just is not working. Anyway, it's down to one Grace. Good. Okay, good. We got that straightened out there. So anyway, this child protection system is a government entity that was created by Congress, which demanded that social services create a division of them to protect their children from neglect and abuse. That's neglect and abuse. And protecting our children has been going on for over 300 years. It goes back to the 1600s in the early colonial days. And from the 1600s to the 1875, it was done by a lot of societies that had a lot of money. Not much was done. There's a couple cases that are reported. From 1875 to 1962, there went through some changes. We had to really be careful for children that were being abused working in the 20s. You know, the child was really, 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 really hard going in there. So anyway, from 6 to that's what we have, the CPS systems. They all have a lot of different names, which adds more confusion. If I had to sit here, it would take me an hour to tell you all the names of all the CPS systems. Anyway, this government mandate that told social service they created a CPS system and they're trying to protect our children from neglect and abuse. Unfortunately, about 1,000 children a day are not being protected from abuse or neglect. Instead, many families are being broken up needlessly, and many children are taken in that aren't in immediate danger from the families. The families are broken apart. Furthermore, it seems like they don't like family reunification because it takes too long. Now, this is not all the CPS entities out there. This is approximately over 1,000 of them. Now, the reason I can analyze that is I've had over 1,000 people talk to me from all the 50 states and 21 countries, from Indonesia to Bangladesh to India, up to the Middle East, to Saudi Arabia and Libya, then over to Africa, Liberia, Sudan, Rwanda, Mozambique, and then several provinces in South Africa. Then up to Europe, we've had England, Scotland, Wales, and Denmark and Sweden. Then across the pond to North America, we've had 4 provinces in Canada. As I said before, all 50 states have been representation, and also from the District of Columbia. Then south of the border, we have Mexico Then down in South America on the east coast above Brazil, we have Grenada. Then across the South Pacific, we have New Zealand, and south of New Zealand has been the land down under Australia, 2 states there, by the way. So that's a lot of people. You know, a lot of you are from the same state. I've had 3 or 4 people from Maryland. I've had, easily a couple hundred people from California as it goes on and on. But all of you that are calling in have some degree of problems with CPS. You wouldn't be here if you didn't care about your children and family. Me, myself, I've been fighting CPS for 15 years. I, too, was attacked. My children were stolen. They were hurt and they were harmed. And I, too, had an awful case of fighting CPS. Now, I'm not an attorney. I'm a father, a loving man who cares about you guys. I've helped raise 6 children, and I have 42 years of marriage experience. And I have over 60 years of life skills that I could share with you. But right now, I'm talking about the child protection system that seems to be on everybody's mind, every parent, and so forth. Now, we have people coming into my live stream, and I want to welcome them. There is Liliana Filancio from Houston, Texas. And I'm going to put her message up because YouTube sometimes doesn't show the message on, show the Facebook messages. So she's asking a question: can a safety plan be considered for parental termination? Because I went through this document. It doesn't say the twins will be going to temporary homes to supposedly the guy on my birth certificate, which he's not the father of the children. Thanks, I appreciate it. Well, I think what you're talking about, a safety plan is usually at the start of your CPS case. And yeah, they probably have violated your constitutional and civil rights. But, they remove the kids fast because you allow them to. The problem is most of us, including myself, didn't know about certain protection that you can instill. And since we're talking, let me finish her answer about her safety plan. The safety plan is usually set up for family reunification. It's where the children are going to stay, and you want to first ask them to stay with family members. Now, they have felt it necessary to remove the children because they're in extreme danger. Now, most of the time, it is an extreme danger. What they're doing lately is that they are taking children so they can start getting the money from the state. You see, $1 billion goes. First of all, it's $1 trillion business. Billions of it goes from the federal government to the state, and $1 million goes from the state to the county in that kind of chunk, in that kind of arrangement. So they are doing a lot of money. It's $1 trillion business, and I hope that it gets investigated because they're investigating social services, and they should grab the CPS because they are corrupt and they are taking money that shouldn't be there. But anyway, going back to your safety plan, Liliana from Houston, Texas, that is the early state. It's not a termination of your rights to your children. It's a wake-up call, if you don't already know it, that you need to get an attorney. You need to get an attorney that is licensed and schooled in juvenile law, family law, and dependency law. Those 3 areas of law have to be in there, Liliani. Now, further on the safety plan, it's very important that if your children are stolen from you, that you request them to be placed with family members. And they don't have to be, your mom and dad. They can be brothers, sisters, anybody over the age of 18 that has a home and a job that can take care of these children. It can be in different states. across the country. There's a way to transport the children. CPS doesn't like to do that. It's more work for them and less money for them. So it's all about money and time, but you should be getting that attorney to defend you. Now, I need to go to your next comment there. And you said, just a quick question, feel like they reviewed my right. They did. And what I wanted to tell you is my rule number 3 is you do not open the door to strangers. You don't know CPS. You don't know the police. So why do you open the door? You're letting in a whole can of worms. When there's a knock on the door, you don't open the door. I don't. And you tell your family members not to open the door. And if family members are at the door, you tell them to use a special knock or a special ring, and then you can open it. But every time you open the door, then you got a policeman or you got a social worker standing up front with a really mean look and not very nice look, so you know you're in trouble. And, you can shut the door and in their face, but that ends up being kind of rude and becomes kind of a problematic with you. Now, the police officer's there because they're protecting the social service worker, the CPS social worker. And that's for the protection, but CPS likes them because they're intimidating. They're there in their combat boots with all their weapons around their waist and their fatigues and the vests, protective vests and so forth, and they look very intimidating. Also, they enforce things they should enforce. They don't know anything about CPS. And again, I'm talking about the rogue CPSs and the rogue cops, because a good reason to open the door, because too many people have been shot. There was a guy last May 3rd that was shot in the chest 5 times by opening the door. There was a lady that invited a sheriff, LA County sheriff, into her home, and she was shot 5 times in the face. Both those individuals are dead. One died while talking on FaceTime to his fiancée, and his place was a mistaken place for domestic violence. And the Gainesville Sheriff Department fired the guy, and he's being sued, but that's not going to remake the life. The same thing goes for the black lady. Her life is not going to return. You can fire a sheriff and then, prosecute him, but it doesn't bring back life. So the rule of the thought, if these 2 cases don't emphasize how important don't open the door, it should wake up call. I didn't know that. I did not know anything about CPS, but there's no law that says you have to open the door. Now, there's 3 ways that CPS and the policeman can gain access. 1, if you give them permission or a family member gives them permission. 2, there is extreme violence taking place, domestic violence. And if a child's involved and they're crying out and there's screaming going on, there are gunshots or whatever's going on, the police and the social worker will break into the home. Now, the 3rd way is called a warrant. It's a legal document signed by a judge that's requested by the police or the social worker to gain entry into your home and also do what they want you to do. Now, all that's got to be spelled on the paper. It's a paper, not a PDF thing on a computer. It's a piece of paper. And it's signed by a judge with a wet signature. And that wet signature is embossed by a hand stamp, meaning that it's raised up so you can't forge it. Now, there should be a proper date on that form. That date is the date like a regular work day. If it's a holiday during the week, that's not a valid date. If it's a weekend, it's not a valid date because you cannot get a warrant and court's not open on holidays or the weekend. A lot of times, CPS workers will use a previous warrant from another case. So you got to be careful there. Also, there's a lot of whiteout or a lot of erasures on it. Then it's definitely a bogus piece of paper. It's got to have the date they can enter your home. It's got to have the names of the parties that are investigating and the children's name listed. It also has to have the allegations listed, whether it's neglect, abuse, or both. It also has specific instructions what they can do. They can talk to the parents, search the home, or move the child, but it's got to be on there. And it's got to be at the address that you're at. And that's got to be on the paper. And as they say, it's got to be the date they can do so. So that document is really important. Now, you won't see the document if you don't answer the door. You may see it later if they leave it on the doorstep or in your mailbox. But if you're outside and you just come into your house or in the yard or you're leaving the house, you can talk very nicely to the policeman and the social worker. You don't have to tell him very much. He'll probably ask for your name and you give him your name. And then the easy way to do is, how can I help you? Well, we're here to do an investigation on neglect. And you say, okay, this is a legal matter. I need to have my attorney present. We will have to reschedule this discussion. I'll have my attorney contact you. So that is a way you can get out of that. But they say, well, we got this warrant. If you study the warrant and it looks like it's legit, you're going to have to do what the warrant says. You have to do what the warrant says. You have to do it. But anyway, you may get some time if you tell them you need to have your attorney present, because your constitutional rights, if you're involved in a legal matter, which this is, you're entitled to representation through all the proceedings of the arraignment, for the investigation and so forth. The reason why you want to request an attorney is you're dealing with the agency that's very corrupt. Very, very corrupt. Now, I'll stop here for a moment to catch up with people, what they're saying, because I'm behind a little bit here. Now, we have a new person here called Yashu Saver. And welcome, Yashu Saver. And I have no idea where you're from. And the same, I have Liliana from Houston, Texas. But Yashu Shaver, if you could tell me where you're from, who and how hurt your children? Oh, well, my children were illegally taken by CPS. They, for 5 years, were harassing me with false allegations made by lay people who were my in-laws, my wife's mother, father, 3 sisters, and a brother, calling once a week for 5 years of things that weren't not true, such as we weren't clothing their children, we weren't taking their children to school, we weren't paying their utility bills, we weren't feeding the children. This happened right shortly after I lost my job through no fault of my own in 2010. And they wanted to take possession of our children. They've never liked me as the husband to their daughter, and they've always wanted our 3 beautiful children. Now, as a family, we have 6 children. We have 3 older ones that are raising their own kids, their own lives, and we have the 3 younger ones. Those are the ones that were apprehended. But after 5 years, they grew tired, so they got a detective. And that detective followed me when I picked up my young son at school and had me pulled over by a black and white with a false traffic violation so that he could talk to me and order me to go home and open up. He had no warrant. He had nothing there. I trusted the police. And I also trusted the social worker. And I freely talked, which is a big mistake. Do not say anything because they'll use what you say against you. And when I came home to my home, there was, lots of people there. There were 5 firemen, 2 code enforcement, 3 social workers, 2 uniformed policemen, and the detective. And all these people were there to find out what was wrong with my home so they could grab my children. Apparently, the Orange County um, child protection system in California is very corrupt, and they want nothing more than make money off your kids. That's the problem. You don't know the good CPS from the bad CPS. My social worker didn't even have a high school education. She was young, and she had no training. And here she is supposedly attacking our family. And what happened is they ordered my kids with them. They weren't in danger. They all three were in school. They had to be picked up at school and embarrassed by their classmates. My young son was with me. I turned him over, and he was terrified. He was 9. My daughter was 12, and my other son was 15. He was at a private school. They were safe. They were at two public schools, a middle school and an elementary school nearby. They were safe at all times. They were not in danger. But they decided that because why? They want money right away. So they took them to a shelter and put them in danger because that shelter was next to the Bureau of Juvenile Prisons, where prisoners, juveniles, were there, and their play yard was adjacent to the shelter's play yard, and they could freely talk to the inmates. There also was beehives that were stinging the children there. The place was unsanitary with roaches and rats running around. The food was awful and it was overcrowded. That's what they did. They took my children from a protective, beautiful home. You know, it was a 2-story home, high voltage ceilings, modern home, built in 1998. And it had central vacuum. It had all the modern, it was beautiful. There's no question. Each child had their own room. It was clean and respectable in their rooms. But anyway, they decided to put it in that environment so they could call the county, get a number, and get the money start to flow in. And they were getting $20,000 per child per month. That's $60,000 a month they're getting. And this case lasted 3 years. So that's a lot of money that they made off having my children in their custody. That's why they want to take children. They want to take them so they're in the custody of CPS, whether they're at a shelter or at a foster group home or a foster single home, you know. And luckily, I was able to get me and my wife to have them stay with family members. So for the first month or two, they're with family members. And that seemed to work out okay. But the detective decided to give his report to the district attorney, and the district attorney decided to press criminal charges against me and my wife. Now, that delayed everything, and CPS got worse. These were false charges, no validity to them. I had to hire an attorney, and it went on for about a year, and they finally did what's called a plea bargain. Never agreed to a plea bargain. I did all the stupid things. I have 5 rules that take care of the children that I should never have been involved, and I didn't follow any of my rules because I didn't know them back then. So they hurt my children physically and emotionally. They hurt as parents. It's a very cruel place that they're in. And I can go in more detail, but I need to go on with my other questions here, Yashu. So hopefully that helps you. Now, Yashu had another question. Is depression a cause for CPS take your children? No, it shouldn't be depression. Who has depression? The parents, the children, the social worker, the police? You have to be a little bit more clear, Yashu. And you say it's another question. Is depression a cause for teen? No. There are 2 ways that they take your children. 2 ways. Neglect or abuse. Now, neglect could be you don't have clothing for them. You don't do showers for them. You don't take them to school. You don't feed them. You don't house them. You don't have any supervision. Those are all symptoms of neglect. Now, abuse is when you physically harm a child, and also emotional when you harm a child. Like if you uh, take a child and slam them against the wall, that is abuse. If you shake a young infant while their brain is still growing, that is abuse. If you pinch or hurt a child physically, that is abuse. Using sticks, ropes, or chains, or torture methods, those are abuse. Punching a child is abuse. Those are all forms of abuse. Putting their hand on the stove to show them it's hot, that is abuse. You don't teach children to stay away from the hose, the range, by putting their finger on the hot range. That's not how to teach it. Or the hot and cold water and having the child's hand under where you turn the hot water on. No, that is called abuse. And you could be taking your children away from you for doing that. There's also sexual abuse and things of that nature. Emotionally, you can be arguing with your parents so bad that the yelling and screaming are causing emotional abuse to the children. Children upstairs listening, it hurts them to see that the two parents that they idolize are screaming at each other. And I like to point out that not only do you give children timeouts, parents should take timeouts. If you're arguing and you're going nowhere and you deadlock, and this could happen with your family or at workplace, you take a timeout and take a walk. Don't be proud to be the first one to take the walk. You walk. You go away for 15 minutes, then come back together and try to discuss it further. Just like with children, you punish them by telling them to sit in a corner and think about what they've done. But then you must bring the children back with you to ask them if they understand what they've done and make sure they understand why they had the time out. You need to show love and support to children. So hopefully that will help you a little bit, Yasu. I don't know where you're from, but thank you for your two questions. Now, Liliana had asked a couple questions, and now I'm going to put her name up on there and see what she says. What would be the next step to try and get them? I'm trying my best to get them, but I feel like they did it for money too and disability my sonny has. So your son has a special needs. Of course, they get extra money. They get an extra $10,000 a month for disability. Also, the added homeless, neglect, and supposed kids were abused but never was. Substance abuse. Maybe they think that if you're doing drugs, that the kids were doing drugs. You should not do drugs. You should not smoke. That is a no-no. You have to do it away from the children. Homeless, there's nothing wrong with being homeless. You may have been involved in the hurricanes or the rains on the East Coast, and your home may have washed down the streams. Or you're involved in the fires in California, and your home burned to the ground. Just because your home's gone should not be a need for homeless. Now, neglect, that means that the kids were not taken care of. Now, abuse, you say never was. And substance, I don't know what you mean by substance. But I want to put your next comment on and see what it says here too. This is going kind of slow, you guys. I'm sorry, but I think everybody has a chance to hear about things. I'm trying to help you all. They never did point me a court order at all. I don't mean you mean a court attorney, a court-appointed attorney. And the people that have my kids don't let me speak to my kids for 2 months. I wrote them to talk to them. That's wrong. When your kids are temporarily in custody of CPS, you're supposed to have visitations with your children. You're supposed to have visitations with your children, either supervised or unsupervised. And the foster care people can't deny that from you. Now, Feliciana is from Houston, Texas, and she says that she was in a public place, never told them where I was eating with my children. It was a public place when they seemed to get you. I don't understand how that is. I need more detail. Danielle, welcome to my live stream. Danielle is a very special lady who used to be a co-host of my show, and it's good to see you too. Danielle, you forgot to text me your full name, your email, and your phone number so I can give you 15 minutes of free time with Mr. Davis that you wanted to talk to him about. So I give you 15 minutes of free time. So you need to do that. Now, I need to put some other things up. Let me see here. Hold on one second here. Please, when you text me a question or a comment about CPS, show your full name, your city or county, and your state. And if you're from a country, also include your country. Also, tell me about your CPS case. Now, to be a guest on my live stream, I would love to have you. I can have up to 9 of you as my guests on the live stream. And I'm on 14 times a week. You just going to email my show producer, Grace, at vincentwdavis.com. That's Grace at vincentwdavis.com. And she'll gladly get you on my show as a guest. And you just email her, I want to be on Bob's Sunday morning show, Bob's Friday night show, Bob's Wednesday morning show, Bob's Tuesday night show. You got 14 shows to pick from. And if you want to be on more than once, you're perfectly welcome. Now, I can take up 9 of you. Me makes 10, and we can have 10 of us talking and helping one another. It's a great way to be a guest on my show. Now, another way to interact with this live podcast is to call me at 626-698-0990. You call Bob Pace at 626-698-0990. And I'd love to talk to you about your case. Now, if you call in or a guest on my show, you're entitled to a free 15-minute Zoom private conversation with Mr. Davis, one of the best attorneys to fight CPS. He's my attorney. I hired him. He got back my children. So I want to tell you he's great. I've heard the other day one of the people in this room said he had her criminal charges dropped. He is doing this for 39 years fighting CPS, and he's won back thousands of children. He is a juvenile law, family law, dependency law attorney. He's licensed. He's been doing this for 39 years. He's also a trial attorney. He can do trials. And I mentioned trials, by the way. Some of you not realize that you can request a trial by your peers for this type of case. It all depends on the location of the places. But there are places I've heard that it has happened. And I think a trial by jury is the best way to do it because the judges are crooked and the attorneys are crooked. You got an uphill battle of fighting CPS. Some people don't realize fighting CPS is like open heart surgery. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know what you're doing. Now, I had some people this morning, Yashu, Savior, I have no idea where you're from, but I'd like to know, and I'd like to know about your CPS case. And also, Liliana, I had some other questions for you, and she's from Houston, Texas. And the other person that we have here is Danielle Watt, and she's from Georgia. And she had a special needs son that was kidnapped and held in Texas by CPS to his 19 years old. And finally, she was able to get her child back. She had been incarcerated. She did her time. And when she got out, she tried to find out where her child is. Apparently, her child's special needs. Georgia couldn't take care of it. They went to the ICPC, the Interstate Compact Placement for Children, and they shipped him to Texas to have it done. Meanwhile, he turned 18. He knew he could go back home to his mother, but they refused to do so. CPS says, well, he's special needs. We got to still take care of him. They didn't want to really deal with the mother because she had been incarcerated, and somebody who's been incarcerated is now no longer, I guess, considered a human being. Yes, people do make mistakes, and they do serve time. But after they serve time, they are new again, and they're given a second chance to better themselves in society. Anyway, Daniel Watt is a very sweet lady, and I want to help you. Again, Daniel, text me at 626-698-0990. Your full name, your email, and your phone number. Those three things. And I'll get you set up with Grace to talk to Mr. Davis for 15 minutes. Whether you're a guest on my show or you're call in, you're entitled to a free 15 minutes. Now, I do want to tell you, if you want to talk longer than 50 minutes, I'm going to put a ticket below my screen. That ticket is for 30 minutes for $60. All you have to do is go to that website, use your credit card, sign up for a 30-minute session with Mr. Davis. It'll cost you only $60. His rate is $500 an hour. And so for $60 for 15 minutes, that's a good price. And for instance, his retainer for one place in LA County is $5,000. But it varies. When he goes out of state, it's more money because of the per diem. There has to be accommodations and food and ground transportation and air transportation when he goes out of state. So for $60, that's this. But if you want to retain them already, your mind's made up, please call 888-888-6582. That's the law offices of Vincent W. Davis. There you can find other attorneys and other matters, criminal matters, divorce matters, real estate matters, the workplace matters, injury matters, immigration matters, anything that you can think of. He has an attorney that will take care of your legal matters. They're all reasonable price. He has a great law firm, and he once was a foster kid himself. So he knows about foster care. He knows really well about CPS. In fact, after a case is closed, he has sued CPS both in state and federal court and won millions of dollars. Now, a couple of things I like to point out, since no one seems to be talking anymore at the moment, is that we are trying to start a newsletter, and we want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel called CPS Defense Strategy Consultant Vince Davis. Now, we'd like you to subscribe to the channel. It'll be $1.99 a month, reoccurring, and you will get a newsletter. And the newsletter will have articles from me about CPS and articles from Vincent Davis about CPS. He'll talk about how to fight CPS, how to get your children back, how to sue CPS. Those are really, really good ones there. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. There'll be other things like insights on Bob Pace, his life, his problems with CPS. There'll be insights with Vincent Davis about how to fight or how to get your children back, or his life as a foster child. There'll be other people there. So it'll be a really good newsletter and really help you on there. There's also, you can join Mr. Davis's. I'm going to put some other uh, websites. What I have right now are two websites. One's called the Stand Store, stand.store/attorney VWD. You go to that website and you look up, and there's a lot of consulting packages, a lot of lawyer packages. There's also books that can help you out and guides and so forth. And speaking of books right now, what, hold on one second. I somehow got my number messed up there. There's a new a grandparent book out called A Guide for Grandparents to Adopt Their Grandchildren, a step-by-step guide in California. Now, this step-by-step guide is written well by Mr. Davis, and a lot of you have bought it. It's $9.99, but I have a discount code. If you use my name, last name, Pace, PACE, all capitalized, 50, you'll get 50% off. 50% off of $9.99 makes it a real affordable document, and it's really geared for grandparents, but parents and other states, you will find it beneficial. And so there's a lot of books at that Stand Store. Also, when you call in to 888-888-6582, you can ask them. You can ask them when Mr. Davis is going to be on, when Bob Pace is going to be on. Make sure when you talk to them at that number, you tell them that Bob Pace sent you. And that if you do talk to Mr. Davis, please say that Bob Pace sent you. And that's really, really important there. I wanted to say there. Now, the last message I received is from Danielle Watt. I haven't heard anything more from Liliana or from Yashu. You're welcome to send in more text messages. It seems like sometimes the text messages stop, and I don't know if they get stuck or what. But the last one I had was at 10:20. We just got a new one. At 10:48 we got. That clock must be off because, let me see, is it 10? Oh, yeah, it is 10:48. I stopped my live stream at 11 o'clock, so we got about 10 minutes left. Now, call Unplug. You've been on before. I recognize the name, but I forgot where you're at. And hey, welcome. Let me see here. Call Unplug. Now I forgot. I think you're from California, if I'm not mistaken. I think you're from California. Anyway, welcome. Now I'm open up to text message questions and so forth. Oh, you're at St. Louis, Missouri. Boy, that was miles off. I'm sorry. Anyway, she's from St. Louis, Missouri. Yashu, I have no idea where you're from. Felicia is from Houston, Texas. So that is good. Now, the other website that's going across my screen is vincentwdavis.com. Now, that's informative about his office and gives you a lot of factual information. So there you go. You got two websites. Make sure whether you use the Stand Store or Vincent W. Davis's website, you start off with http:// and then those locations, and you'll get to where you need to get there. Now, I've shown you the discount, how to get a discount for 30 minutes for $60. You can call in or be on my live stream as a guest, and you get 15 minutes free time with Mr. Davis. And that's a private Zoom conference with him. I'm trying to think what else. Okay, I'll put back the $60 for 30 minutes. Now, I've mentioned my rules. I have 5 of them. I wish I followed them. I wish I did because I probably would not have lost my daughter. We had a problem with her case. We had many problems with the case, but one case was with a social worker that did retaliation. She was on the witness stand and she was testifying about how good that my wife's sister and husband would be to adopt her daughter. And that was very hard to swallow because when Mr. Davis asked her what kind of parents they were, the social worker said they're great parents. And then he kind of looked down and said, has there ever been in domestic violence? And she says, no, no domestic violence. Then he opened up a folder and read these reports, one after another, of domestic violence the two had, and it was physical violence where they actually swung and hit each other and hurt each other. That's not the environment you want to get. And she lied. She committed perjury. And she was so frustrated and crying, ran out of the courtroom. But she told us parents she's going to take revenge. And you know what she did? She told us that you'll never see your daughter again. Now, that's a social worker that said that. And that's firsthand knowledge. And what she did is she convinced her 12-year-old daughter, she said, since you're 12, you can emancipate from your parents. I mean, divorce your mom and dad, your brothers, your sisters, your 3 brothers, your 2 sisters, and your grandparents, both sets of grandparents. That's 4 grandparents. Your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, all the family members, you can divorce them at 12. And she did. And on top of that, she told her to change her name. And she completely changed her name. She had a 3-part name, beautiful name, and the middle name was Hanalei, a place found in Kauai that represents beauty. And she was a very beautiful daughter to us. And so she got a new name, a name that we never heard about. Then she was told to seal her birth certificate, and she did that. So then that says that we're not the parents of her. She got a new birth certificate, put the grandparents' names in there, and they are the new moms and dads. Also, she got a second Social Security card and was getting double funds, one with the first Social Security card and one with the second Social Security card. That's against the law. What the funds were coming from was my account in Social Security. When you work, $10 an hour is put into Social Security. And over 60 years, it amounts to a lot of money. And it's given back to you when you retire. But they're giving back more money for the children because if you're over the age of 62, you can get Social Security for them. And so I was receiving money to help them with their school and so forth. But instead of that, that money was going to her new foster parents, who each were making $250,000. They didn't need that money. So that was pure gold mine to them. And I know my daughter didn't get any of that money. Furthermore, she was adopted by these foster parents we know nothing about. They're not even of her nationality. They're not, I have nothing against nationality, but it should be someone there. So how could they be born? She didn't look like them and everything else. So all I'm saying is that this social worker needed to be sued, and we were going to sue her, but it takes money, and I have a hard time with money, and I had to sell my home, a quick sell my home for half its loss and profit, and getting the money to pay to hire Mr. Davis to help me get my 2 boys back. He was trying to get our girl back, but when she did that, he couldn't stop her. That's the sad part. That's the hurt. And that's how evil CPS is. There are numerous examples that I have. Okay, you're originally from California. Was your CPS case in California or St. Louis? Cal Unplug. Thank you, Danielle. You're awesome too. Because, Daniel, not only is she taking care of her son, special needs, she finally got him back. And she's getting formal guardianship to take care of all his needs, his special needs. She has a brother who has special needs, so she's taking care of two people with special needs. So, Daniel Watt, you're amazing. You know, you may have done mistakes in your life, you served your time, but now you're making yourself a good person out there. And it's such a pleasure to meet you and have you once as my co host. You're always welcome back to be my co host. Now, the rest of you, I haven't heard anything from Liliani. My phone's been up for a good while now, for at least 30 minutes that you could have made a call. I want to help you, Liliana from Houston, Texas. Yashu, I have no idea where you're from, but thank you for your comments. I hope I answered your questions. Um, I think he said that his children had depression and the CPS took them because of depression. I don't think that is neglect, and I don't think that's abuse. So I don't know why the social worker would use that analogy. Cal Plug says it's in St. Louis, and they do not care about the children. They care about money and stealing from the people's deceased grandfather's asset and inheritances as left to me. I know your predicament. There was a willed to unplug, and she had the money that was intercepted by CPS, and now some family members have got it wrong, and it's sad because her grandfather didn't mean it to be for her. It was meant for unplugged there. So I'm sorry to hear that. I know that what that story is. And again, CPS are in corrupt because there's several of you from St. Louis, Missouri that have had bad cases with CPS. Now, my 5 rules, I talked about an attorney. That's the most important rule to get an attorney. And it's going to be hard. You're going to have to find 3 and get quotes for the retainer and get the right kind of attorney. You're going to say, wait a minute, I got a court-appointed attorney. They can help me. No, they're not trained in juvenile law, family law, or dependency law. They're only trained in criminal law. They're fresh out of law school, and they will not fight for your case. They also are so loaded down with other cases, 30 or more, they don't have time to fight for your case. They'll show up at your hearing and you have a brief talk with them, and that is it. My court-appointed attorney and my wife's court-appointed attorney were worthless. They're worthless and wasted a year of our time. When we got a real attorney, it made a big difference. When you have a real attorney, they know the law and they do help you and do help you get your kids back. There's no question about that. So in order to find these attorneys, you got one of them right here, Vincent W. Davis. He meets all the qualifications. All you have to do is call 888-888-6582 and have a conference with them. Or you can get a free 15-minute by either a phone call into the live stream or be a guest, or pay $60 for 30 minutes. Anyway, there is an attorney that meets all the criteria. So now you need to find 2 more. You go to my rule number 4, how to research the internet. And when you research the internet, it's important with your order of words. You put the city followed by the state. And if you're with outside the United States in a country, put your country. And then what you do after that, you put the letters CPS, the Child Protection System. And then you'll see all kinds of things that'll pop up for the Child Protection System in that city and state or country. Now, if you want to refine it more after the CPS, you write. So you're looking for an attorney, you'll say after CPS, a juvenile law, family law, dependency law attorney. And you'll see a bunch of names. You're going to have to weed through them, and you need to call, at least call to get two of them. Two of them that'll meet your needs. Your first question is that are you a professional, licensed, juvenile law, family law, dependency law attorney who's fought CPS and gotten children back? If the question's yes, the next question is, when the case is closed, have you ever filed a lawsuit against CPS in either state or federal court and won back money? If the answer to those two questions are yes, then that is a candidate you need to call. And from there, you determine what affordability you got. It is expensive. It's not cheap. That's why I say some of the numbers. Vincent Davis is $500 an hour. His LA County retainer is $5,000. So that just tells you a little bit about what it does. Now, I sold my home at quick sale to get the money. So that was how I did it. Now, we have we have no more time right now. It's now 11 o'clock, and I need to end my podcast because I make calls from 8 in the morning to 10 o'clock and from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock for people who are interested in hiring Mr. Davis. So if you want to hire him, call me. You can talk to me. Or you can see my podcast tonight, my live stream tonight. You can see my live stream tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I want to say God bless you all. Keep fighting for your children. Don't give up. And this is Bob Pace signing off until this evening at 7 p.m.